Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the third LEAP workshop. Thank you to those who have attended both days, and welcome to those who are joining us today for the first time. Yesterday, we talked about making the leap into entrepreneurship, and today we are getting straight to the meat. Today, we are talking about investing, and this is a very important topic. So we're going to talk about how you know when you're ready for investors, what opportunities are out there, what's going on behind the scenes. There's just so much we don't know. So today it is my pleasure to bring to you these two amazing entrepreneurs. Both of my panelists are amazing. They are really making their mark and changing the world. So I'm so grateful that they're here today. And first we have the very passionate, extremely intelligent Abyah Wynn. And she was featured on Forbes and many other publications. I'm sure you've seen her all over the place. She is the co-founder and managing director of 2065 Fund, which is a fund that invests in socially responsible businesses run by women and people of color. And we also have the amazing, driven, and innovative Kwame Anku. You have seen him, or you might have even heard him on NPR, CNN, all these amazing places. He is the CEO and chairman of the Black Star Fund, which is an early stage innovation fund. And thank you guys for being here. Welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Erin.
Well, let's get into it. How do you know when you're even ready for investors and to even get the attention of investors? Let's start with Kwame.
Oh, okay. Well, I was trying to be a gentleman and let the lady go first. I'll get in trouble if my mother is watching this, so I'll be like, start.
Oh, okay, so you want to start? Okay. Well, I think one of the big factors to keep in mind is whether or not you have product market fit. Product market fit means that you are in a good market with a product that can satisfy that market. And if you left, over 50% of your consumers would be really upset about your departure from the market. So I think that product market fit is something to really keep in mind when you are thinking about raising capital. Also, like, our job is to make sure that we are investing in companies that will yield a return to our investors. And so you have to think about whether or not your company is in a market that, you know, has a sizable number in terms of market potential, maybe $10 billion plus market size, and whether you can carve out a substantial section in that market for yourself. So maybe, you know, in 5 to 7 years, your business is at, you know, $100 to $200 million in revenue. So those are just some things to keep in mind.
Yeah, so I would put out, I think the key thing for me, or my suggestion would be for an entrepreneur, is to figure out kind of where you are in the journey. Because you can be ready for investors depending on where you are in the journey. There's people who want to fund your idea. There's people who want to fund you once you have shown some traction. There's people who want to fund you because you've got 5,000 users on your platform, right? And your job is to understand the people who you're talking to and what it is that they're looking for. And I always like to say, you can't say the wrong thing to the right person, and you can't say the right thing to the wrong person. I mean, the reality is that people are excited about what you're doing. It's like, I like you, I love this idea, I see the opportunity, I'm all in. And that might be for the first 10 grand, that might be for the first 100 grand, that might be for the first million. What I find in my work is that a lot of the entrepreneurs have not kind of done their homework vis-a-vis the investment game. And it actually is a game, right? We're not applying for college here. This is not about a meritocracy and how do you kind of get prepared to apply to college. This is really about understanding how the game works. Where are you kind of on the investment spectrum? And are you actually talking to the right people? So another great thing, you might want to write this down, that I learned along the way, is that if you're not getting the results that you want, oftentimes it's either you're saying the wrong thing or you're talking to the wrong people. If you're at the early stage, you don't want to be talking to a more advanced investor, because you'll get very frustrated and you'll internalize a bunch of stuff that's actually not true. These investors don't get it. They're really mean. They told me I needed to come up with a different idea. You were probably talking to an investor that was just later down the road. So that's really the key thing. And there's lots of great ways. You want to be watching YouTube videos of these investors. You want to be reading their blogs. Obviously, you want to be seeing who they funded and making sure you're in communication with them. So all of those things will really help you.
And at the end of the day, sometimes the investor is just an ass and he was never going to fund you anyway. So again, talking to the wrong people.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that goes back to doing your research, knowing who you're talking to, right?
That's absolutely right.
So in your opinion, what are some of the hurdles? Like, we know that you can do your research. Some people are just jerks. And you're going and trying to find the right investor to invest in your company. And, you identified what stage of your business that you're in. But still, sometimes it seems like there's a challenge, and in particular, entrepreneurs of color. So what, in your opinion, are some of the hurdles that entrepreneurs of color are facing when they're trying to obtain capital, and how can we overcome that?
I mean, I'll yield this one to you first. I know that we have a bit differing answers when it comes to this question, so I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I don't want to get in trouble with Abyah, so I'm gonna answer more of the hack, right? There's so many hurdles, and I think the entrepreneurs out there today, they probably could list them better than us, right? They're dealing with it on the front lines. I think we're here to help you, right? So what I like to do is just give you some hacks, right? One of the major things we see is the idea of the lack of kind of pattern recognition. People are not used to seeing people like me, and then I represent something that's kind of out of the norm, and that creates a problem, a kind of cognitive dissonance for the investor. I think by and large, that's actually true. So the hack still goes back to doing the research. Let's say that somebody wanted to talk to me. If I was trying to talk to me and I was an entrepreneur, the first thing I would do is find out, well, who did Kwame invest in? And I would just reach out to them. Right. So if you find we invested in Mary Spiel, one of the most, up and coming legendary, I call her the queen of virtual reality. Mike Brown from Win-Win, Don Dixon from PopCom, one of our new legends, Denise Woodard from Partake Foods that Jay-Z invested in. Everybody's reading about and talking about. Just call them, reach out to them. Hey, what's it like working with Kwame? Now, if they tell you, oh, he's a jerk, he's not really helpful, he's really mean, he's pressuring us to exit every time, he's hounding me all the time, you shouldn't call them. Because that means that I would fall in the category of the type of person that you would not want to be dealing with, right? If you hear, oh my God, he's just been a godsend, he's been so helpful, he focuses kind of primarily on African-American entrepreneurs, he's as hands-on as we need him to be, he doesn't micromanage, but he's been helpful. So if that's what you're hearing, you're like, okay, great. Then you say, would you be willing to make an introduction? You see what I mean? That makes a huge difference. So I think the hacks is about identifying what is the issue in front of you. And sometimes you don't necessarily have to deal with it head on. You just have to come up with a workaround. But you do have to believe, fundamentally, you do have to believe that you can work around anything. Most folks that are in entrepreneurs, that's what you do. I mean, think about what is it that you're doing? You're creating solutions to problems that other people have not figured out how to do, right? You're willing, your risk profile is extremely high, and you believe that you can do extraordinary things. So if you think that you can build an app that can solve problems for millions of people, if you think you've got something that's worth millions of dollars worth of investment, if you're willing to take significant pay cuts or put your life savings into your venture or sleep on a floor for X amount of months, you certainly should believe that you can hack the investment game, right? And just remember, a lot of the basics are still the same, right? People like to do business with people that they know, that they like, and they trust. Mm-hmm. So fundamentally, it's about positioning yourself for that, right? If I had a friend and I wanted to ask her friend out, I would try to get the friend to like, oh man, Kwame's a bomb. Dude, I love this guy. He's amazing. He's always there. He's a great guy. Doesn't mean that she's going to go out with me. It certainly means that she's going to be very open to the idea, as opposed to if I just roll up on her and try to, talk some game to her. That whole thing is because there's a comfort level. So
Yep.
people, they don't have to know you, but they have to know somebody that knows you. And sometimes you have to be a little bit patient in terms of the network game. I hear people talk all the time, well, I don't have that extensive of a network. Well, you know, I didn't go to Stanford and I don't have this super powerful network. But that's part of the game. That's your job, is to develop the network. Doesn't mean you got to spend 3 years. Doesn't mean you got to stalk people on LinkedIn. But it does mean you got to put some effort and energy into making your network more expansive. And I'll just end with this. I always say that the wider and deeper your network is, the easier your life is. And that's in every aspect, from your business to your relationships, to your stress level, to kind of every aspect. The wider and deeper your relationships are, the easier your life is.
I love that.
I completely agree with that. And I think that could be a luxury. I know that, 7, 8 years ago, I definitely didn't have the breadth of network that I do now. And so, yeah, you have to be patient. It's going to take time. But if you're trying to build your company now, what do? I think that it starts with going to different events, going to different conferences. LinkedIn has been my best friend. I mean, I got my first job in venture because a random guy from Australia reached out to me and said, you came up on a short list of candidates. I see your potential. I want to help you further your career. So you never know how far LinkedIn can get you. Don't underestimate it. Also, people live on their phones. People are on Twitter and LinkedIn 24/7 these days. So if you slide into someone's DMs, not sexually, chances are they are seeing that message. And if your message to them is compelling enough, they will respond to you. I think that some of the hurdles that we face, personally, I feel like there is an uphill battle for a female or minority founder when they're entering the room because, I wholeheartedly believe that there's a perceived risk associated with investing in these founders. And call it unconscious bias, call it whatever you want. People are seeing you as other. And so I think that some of the hurdles are network, overcoming those biases, relationships, access to capital. Those are some things that, no matter how qualified you are, what Ivy League school you went to, you're going to have to overcome those, but they are hurdles that you can overcome.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And I know we're running a little close on time, but I wanted to jump quickly into what is happening. There's so much we don't know. And you gave us a little bit insight into, how a decision is made. But what is going on behind the scenes? Day in the life of an investor, like what other factors are involved and strategies that are involved that we aren't aware of?
I mean, what isn't going on in our lives? We're trying to placate our investors, build relationships with other VCs, be passionate about and go after the companies that we love and fight for them in our investment committee meetings. And we are, making sure that we're opening our network and navigating in a way where we can make ourselves available for, the best and the brightest deals and build relationships with founders as well. So there's a lot going on.
Yeah, I think it goes back to, again, just doing the research, that everybody's kind of fund is somewhat unique and different, and the processes are unique and different. So we hear Abyah talking about an investment committee meeting, right? You've got certain funds that they're kind of religious. Every Tuesday, they'll hear new ideas for their committee. Sometimes there's a process where somebody's a champion, it goes through a particular process, and then every other Friday, they'll bring folks in to be able to pitch. Everyone's situation is different. In my fund, I'm the sole GP. There's no investment committee. I say, I want to do it. I do the due diligence. I like it. I do it. That's how it works. So you got to really understand kind of everybody's operational system. What is pretty much the same, though, throughout the whole process is a due diligence process. And I think people have to be ready for that. It's varying degrees. So what it means is I like you, I want to do this. It's conditional that we're going to make an investment, barring any unforeseen issues within due diligence. So it's really important to just be prepared, know what the kind of things that people are looking for. Doesn't mean you're going to find all that online, but it does mean if I'm talking to Abyah and she's like, "Kwame, this is looking really good. The investment committee loved you. We're going to be going into due diligence probably in a week or two." It's my job to make sure I've got the checklist, right? What is every single thing that she wants in that data room, in that shared folder, so that I am prepared, because she's a champion for me in her firm. The last thing I want to do is embarrass her because she can't come in with a full docket of materials because I didn't do my job, right? That you don't want. And especially you want to do that too, because once the deal gets done in an ideal scenario, then because she found you, she championed you, you made her look good, she got the deal, everybody's cheering and patting her on the back. Now that the money's been wired, now she can really work with you as well as other people in the firm to help you to get to the next level.
I think you also have to be cognizant of who you're talking to, like who is your first intro into whatever fund you're seeking an investment from. So are you talking to an associate? Are you talking to a principal? Are you talking to a GP? Are you talking to a managing partner? Because all of these people have different levels of seniority. And so if you're talking to a GP, like maybe they can push it through immediately. Like usually, depending on how many GPs are in a firm, if they're really passionate about a deal, they get, one green card every quarter. And that means that no matter if anybody wants to veto it, that's their deal. They're pushing it through. If it's a principal or an associate, they really don't have that much decision-making power. So you need to know, who you're talking to and how to manage your expectations. And, if you really want to talk to someone that is above their head, make sure you're doing it in a very respectful way to get to that person who is the decision maker.
Yeah. So what if an entrepreneur did everything, like went through the checklist, got the approval, got the funding? Is there anything that happens that is outside of your control? Any roadblocks or a situation where you thought you did everything right, but sometimes these factors come into play, like politics or something? Like, are there certain things or situations that happen that prevent a deal from going through that is not, within the entrepreneur or your control?
Yeah, so I think it's a little tough, Aaron, to certain political things. I think that those dynamics are always there. But if those end up being a deal killer, it's probably going to be earlier on in the thing, right? So I'm in the firm, and her and I got a little bit of beef, and she stole one of my deals. I didn't fight for her on another thing when I told her that I would. So we got a little thing going on. That stuff like people aren't going to know, right? But we also got to realize that, sometimes funds want to have a particular exposure in a particular area. So they'll say, hey, we're going heavy into AI right now. We're just not doing a lot of the SaaS stuff. Or we made a pivot as things change. We're seeing that with COVID. But again, two quick things on that. When COVID hit, there were people writing these blogs that I thought was just crazy. And it's basically like, oh, this is going to be a terrible time to raise money. And if you're a fund manager, you basically just going to be on a holding pattern. And if you're an entrepreneur, you might want to just go back to your job because it's just going to be really uncertain times.
Oh, wow.
And I watched those blogs being written. And then right after that, like a week later, I'm watching all these PitchBook stories about a new $4 billion fund that just closed. Right?
I saw a lot of that too.
Come on. Money is always flowing.
There's always money.
There's always money moving. Mm-hmm. So your job is to just pivot. And I can tell you, as a Black fund manager, who's the only fund manager in the country who has all Black portfolios two times in a row with over 50% women, I can tell you, I've never been getting the calls at the volume that I have with the amounts that people want to invest. I consult with other funds, helping them to raise money. We've literally done closed three LPs this week, and it's Wednesday. And these are major Fortune 100 companies. When you see $3 billion that's been committed to Black and brown entrepreneurs and fund managers since June 1st in the wake of George Floyd, like this is the time that we've all been fighting and waiting for. So your job to be positioned properly so that you can be able to take advantage of that, and then run and work with the people that you see, like us, right, that are actually doing the work on the front lines to be able to help you.
And there are always going to be those act of God situations where there was nothing that you could do. There was nothing that you could have done different. They're just not going to write the check, or the deal's not going to go through. But I would say 8 times out of 10, that doesn't happen.
Well, that is some good information. And I hope everybody was taking notes, because that is very helpful. Everything was so important. This was very informative, inspiring. I appreciate you guys for taking this time. Everyone will now transition over to the sessions room, where we will have our money management finance session led by Money Making Mitch. Thank you all. Thank you again for being here. Thank you for all of your amazing information.
Thanks,
and I'll put information for everybody so everyone can follow you too.
Sure. So yeah, just LinkedIn is the best way to connect with me. Kwame Anku, KWAMEANKU on LinkedIn.
Perfect.
And you can reach out to me on any of my social platforms, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn as well. And it's A-B as in boy, Y-A-H on Instagram, add a W to that on Twitter, and my first name and last name, W-Y-N-N